Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrin, and today we'll be taking a look at and today we'll be taking a look and today we'll be taking a look and today we're gonna be taking a look at Final Fantasy XIV, a game that I've given a try as a new up-and-coming MMO, and I decided at the end of my experience I'm gonna give the game a review. So this is what today's video is going to be about. Final Fantasy XIV review. Let's get on to the video. So this is Final Fantasy XIV. It's an MMO by the guys that made Final Fantasy series, Square Enix. For the review of this game, I'm not going to take a look at the first iteration of Final Fantasy XIV before the Realm Reborn, which apparently was a total failure for the most part. Even though some people were down with that type of system, because I feel like if I take a look at that and I rank it against the current game, Realm Reborn, it'll just have too much of a negative score to really recommend the game to anybody. The game is basically a cookie-cutter MMO, tab targeting with Final Fantasy graphics. The look of the game is very anime-like. It's really hard to describe it, but the characters are all very animated, and they have races from cat girls to childlike races in the game. The environment is a very pretty looking one though. For the most part, it has 3 biomes for the start: forest, sea, mountains, desert, are the starting grounds. The endgame content is usually gloomy and desert looking, so it's really basic MMO starts where you have colorful, diverse areas, and then they turn into gloomy, dark, desolate places. So, I told you, it's gonna be really a cookie-cutter MMO. So let's get on to the video itself. So the first thing I want to discuss in the game is the character customization, which is the first thing you see once you log into the game. It's pretty detailed. Each race has a sub-race, but racial stats don't really matter in the game. They go as far as making the in-depth birth date and birth sign of your own character with its own benefits, but as from what I've seen, those benefits don't actually really matter at all in the game. You can play any race, any class combination for PvE, PvP, soloing, questing, whatever. They don't make that much of a difference. They go as far as to make all the physique differences for your character, even boob sliders, which is why I said it's a lot like anime-like, and there's also upscore panty shots, which again, that's part of why I have a hard time describing what this game, I guess, look of it is real like. That's why the only way I can describe it is anime-like. So that's character customization. So the first thing I want to talk about is the gameplay. The gameplay itself is a bit slow-paced. Slow-paced running, slow-paced mounts, slow-paced combat. The game itself is kind of lagged. It does some weird thing where it sends a signal from where you're at to Japanese servers and back, where you should be lagging, but you're not really. Although, there have been multiple moments where I'm standing in something red, where it says, get out of this area, and I get out, I still get hit by it if I'm not quick enough. It's something that definitely is in the game, something you should consider, but it definitely is passable, because a lot of players have experienced the same thing, but it's not completely impossible to play the game. I mean, I've been playing it the whole time, and everybody else has been playing it this whole time this way as well, but that is something to take account for. The gameplay itself, to go with a slow pace, does a lot of talking to NPCs. There's also cutscenes to slow down your storytelling process, but if you like cutscenes and a lot of talking quests and whatnot, this is something you can expect out of the game. It has class quests, story quests, and hunting logs, which is exactly what it means. Class quests unlock your basic abilities, and that means also very basic abilities. Story quests unlock your story, as well as basic things such as mounts, so they're kind of mandatory. Then you have hunting logs, which is literally a list of things to kill. If you kill them all, you get XP bonus. And then there's 3 factions to join later down the line, with their own quests, hunting logs, repetitive quests, and a ranking system, in order to get better rewards. But that is something you can expect out of the gameplay from the game. Now the first thing I want to talk about the game is its UI. I think the UI is probably the most uninviting, the worst thing I've ever seen. I've played other MMOs. I've played Terra, I played Rift, this game, Guild Wars, World of Warcraft, and all the UIs there look fairly simple and inviting. Nothing crazy, and then you customize it with all the craziness that you want to later down the line. This game kind of starts you off with craziness, and they give you the customization of UI option, which is nice, although if only they told you what the hell is on it, what's what, which bars are what for. I understand stuff like party bars and action bars, but when you add all these extra things with a Final Fantasy name to it, some kind of limit bars and whatnot, I have no clue what those things are. I have no idea where I should put them, and I felt like that was just an uninviting experience. And the UI, the generic UI that you're given from the very beginning, again, it's very difficult to comprehend what the hell it is at first until you get a gauge on it. So that is something I want to take into account, is the fact that the UI is kind of uninviting. Now, the combat. It's tap targeting, and when I told you guys it's slow paced, what I mean by that, the global cooldown between each ability is 2.5 seconds. To put it in perspective, most games have a 1 second global cooldown. That's why you're able to spam out abilities kind of sort of quickly. But this game has a 2.5 locked global cooldown. The actions and animations for each attack are really flashy, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. On one hand, you perform some crazy strike that has the swirls of energy all around you, but on the other hand, all you've done is dealt 5 damage to an enemy who has a 25 health worth of health bar. So you gotta do that 5 more times. So it looks like a huge empowering ability, but really, in the reality, you're just doing your basic rotation, which some people might like, some people might get turned off by it. Also, the pets are kind of dumb. I played a class with a pet, and the pets kind of stand in different bad situations where they get themselves killed. So I felt like that was a bit obnoxious. The whole game is all about, outside of the tap targeting combat, is to watch for telegraphs on the ground. If something tells you that, hey, it's about to smash down in this area, just don't stand in red. One of the things I also want to consider is some of the combat mechanics of the game, especially for my class. I played an Arcanist, which turns into a Summoner, a class that has 3 different damage over time abilities, a pet, and a way to enhance those damage over time abilities. It sounded to me and played a lot like an Affliction Warlock from World of Warcraft. And what I want to say with this is, when I told you guys the game is kind of a cookie cutter MMO, a lot of its classes are based off of some of the other games of what they have done. Like a combo system for a rogue in this game is use one ability to combo into another, a lot like that of Terra's combo ability. Use one ability to combo into another if you played a warrior class. So it's something familiar for a lot of people, so that could be a good thing, but it's something that you've already seen, which some people find negative. We again are not going to count this exactly against the game, but we are going to take this in consideration when we're talking about the game down at the very end. Next thing we want to talk about is leveling. There's a couple ways to level in the game. There's raids, dungeon scenarios, and repetitive quests, as well as normal quests. So, kind of brings us back to the whole idea of cookie cutter MMO. Again, there's hunting logs, which again, where you kill a certain amount of mobs of certain types, and if you complete the list, you get extra experience. So that is some of the ways you can level. Also, they added a system where you can chain mobs together. So if you go on mob grinding and you kill one mob and you start a chain, as long as you can chain as many mobs as possible, you'll get more XP depending on how many you can get within a single chain. So they have an option for group grinding abilities. So it's not like they don't want people to group grind, but they see it as a valid way to level. So that is something you can do if you're completely down with grinding mobs. Progress is quick, but slows down heavily at the end, which is something I do want to make a statement of. At first in the game, when I first started, there was so many quests to explore. There's so many talking quests, so many kill quests, so many fetch quests, so many story quests. But later, as I leveled to level 50, which is the cap, unless you have the expansion, you literally run out of quests. At level 48, I couldn't find a single quest for level 48. So all I could do, is run in a group of Zerg, do a bunch of fates, which are like scenarios where certain mobs or certain objectives to be completed in certain areas. Then I had to do a dungeon, and I had to do my whole hunting log just to get any kind of XP out of it. And even at level 49, I wasn't going to go back to the story just to do one story and then go back to my own thing. I decided to keep grinding and grinding. So in the end, the game starts out with so many things to do, but in the end, again, with how slow it is, it really does also slow down as you get higher in level. No reliable endgame requesting or questing material, and turn into a drudge with hunting logs. So that's really the only way I can cover how my experience went and how a lot of people's experience have went. I've looked at before, what do you do at level 47 in order to get to level 50? A lot of people just say, oh, grind this dungeon, grind that dungeon, do your hunting logs, or on fates, which are like scenario type of things, in which you run with a group of people within another area. So that's literally what you're supposed to be doing. So the quests really just go high and dry, and then you kind of left grinding for the last few XP, even with knowing the fact that there's an expansion afterwards. Questing, which I kind of have a grime with. It took me all over the map too many times to count. I'm completely fine with exploration. Exploration is good. You should show me every single part of the areas where I normally wouldn't travel. You should show me some of the cool sights and cool areas, but please don't keep bringing me back to the same location just to show me a corner of the map that I haven't discovered, and you only give me one quest there that doesn't expand to any other quest. That is something the questing system have done to me multiple times. They have explored me the areas that I've seen by around level 30, 40 or so, somewhere in the middle, and then after it was level 35, they took me to the same places just to go to the very corner, pick up one objective or do one quest, just to make me go back. So the game really just makes you kind of go fishing far out and then trudge your way all the way back. Thank God for the teleporting system, but getting to those places in the first place is a little bit of a hassle, and that is not something I enjoyed because I ended up seeing all these new areas multiple times where they became very old very quickly. Next up is the community, which I want to first preface before anything I say. Most people have said that the community is better than most of the other MMOs. A lot of people have had good experiences with communities and they love the community of Final Fantasy XIV. With that said, here's my point of view and what I saw. I went from casual to serious questing, and from the community that I've met, they seemed kind of lame. Not in a bad way lame, but they didn't really stand out to be extraordinary. First of all, I barely got into any sort of situations. I ran dungeons, scenarios of some sort, I think called guild hests. I ran a raid. I've quested multiple areas. I've asked people for help in trade chat kind of area, like general chat within like factions or whatever. I asked in guild chat for help, and I've talked to some people, but the community didn't seem to stand out all that much. I got into plenty of, social interactions while leveling in World of Warcraft, for example. Whether it was casual leveling or hardcore grinding, getting there to my level as fast as possible, I couldn't help but run into social situations. One time, while leveling on Draenor, I ran into a guy who was getting attacked by some wolves or birds. I helped him out, we partied up together, and went killing some horde, and we were alliance, and we chatted about the game, we looked for treasures, and I didn't mean to run into that situation. I was actually simply just grinding for as high of a level as possible. But in this game, whether I was casually exploring or hardcore grinding, I didn't really run into anybody in the community. It didn't seem like nobody really stood out in the community. There was a group of people that were playing on PlayStation 3 that all ran in one line through a city, but that's really about all the excitement that I saw in the game. But that's just my personal experience, and chances are if this was my experience, chances are this might have been or might be your own experience. But again, you should take from what other people have said as well. So there you go, presented both sides of information. Now what about PvP? I actually never got to try PvP, and that is kind of shame on me. For a full review, somebody should be able to try each part of the game, every corner, every end, and really be able to delve into what people do in the game, especially that end content. But by the time I got to level 50, I was really exhausted with what the game brought me. I have 17 days left on the game. I doubt I'll be getting much on, simply because of my personal experience with the game, which I don't want to count against the game itself. But I do not want to get into I don't even want to try PvP. It's that kind of exhaustion. So I do apologize for that. I should do it as somebody who actually wants to make a review, but I just cannot get myself to do any more content from the game besides logging into the character, doing a dance and logging off. That's about it. So now we get to dungeons and raids, which is something I got to try even while leveling. For the most part, the game is all about look for telegraphs, don't stand in bad stuff. And another thing for it is don't pull too many mobs. That is really as far as the difficulty goes for the game. If you pull too many mobs, you're gonna wipe. If you pull a few, you're gonna be okay. It's all about not pulling too many mobs, because when too many are on you, they hit a little too hard. Also, don't stand in red stuff, which look for telegraphs. You can res during combat, which I thought was forgiving, but it does come with a debuff, so if you are resing somebody, they're going to be not at their best condition. So resing is a thing in the game, but if you do have to be resed, you're going to kind of hamper down the team, slow down the team, because you're not going to be doing enough damage, enough healing, enough whatever, because you got resed. Combat classes have hybrid buffs, so each class kind of has its own role. So in this game, you would bring a certain class for certain situations. Like you would always bring a paladin because they're the best tank. You would always bring a bard because they can replenish people's mana and energy bar. They call it TP. I think stands for tactical points, but we're gonna call it energy just for my ease. You would bring someone like a summoner so that a summoner can help revive friendlies if a healer cannot do it. You would bring a black mage for the most amount of damage. You would bring a ninja for I wouldn't know what, but each class has a specification and a specific role to work with. So in this kind of game, you would always need to bring certain classes because they give certain buffs to the certain members of your raid, dungeon, or party. Now I want to talk about a really cool customization feature in the game, which ended up kind of disappointing me a bit. The housing. The housing systems are really cool, and a lot of MMOs have them and starting to adapt them. You can buy a plot of land in this game, you can get a house with your guild, or a room with your guild housing, and you can even customize it all, from walls to the roofs to the furniture inside. It's basically a money sink, but a really cool and creative one. The only crime that I have with it when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV is there's only so many plots of land, and it's kind of a first come first serve. These plots of lands are expensive, and only the people that have the money can buy them first hand, so they run out eventually. You have neighborhoods in the game, and if you haven't bought a plot of land as soon as it was available, or as soon as it ever goes available, then you're kind of out of luck, and you can't really do anything, because you can't get a house unless you were one of the first few to get a plot of land. No idea if the game is gonna add any more plots of land, but I feel like housing should be guaranteed to everybody. And I feel like they should add a ton more plots of land and be able to make more for every new player that comes around. So everybody has a chance to sink their money into the game, make their own house, however they want it, customize it with any color, any furniture, any whatever. And I just feel like such a cool feature of customization is just locked out by the idea that, oh, you weren't here one of the first few that was playing the game. Sorry, you don't really get to make a house. I feel like that's kind of lame, especially a feature that, you would think the community would like, because it's something that you can put into the game with whatever choice you would want to. I'm a big supporter of that kind of idea, and I just thought that was kind of lame. It's cool that they have it, it's just, it sucks that it's just locked out to a majority of people. It's a decent game, it's a decent MMO. It's not completely original, as it took just about everything as an MMO these days. It took a lot of ideas from WoW, like some of the dungeon mechanics and class mechanics, but it has enough of its own thrill to be its own thing. It has its own style of dungeons, scenarios, and raid mechanics. It has its own style of class system and an advanced system from a class to a job, which is basically becoming another class with extra niceties to it. Important abilities are locked behind class quests, and having it locked to story quest. Type of game that won't grant you mount until you have done some of the story. It gives plenty of things to do at the beginning of the game, but those options slip out the higher level you get to, which turns into experience into a grind. This grind is also harsh since the game is slow overall, which creates boredom. I have almost fallen asleep during a dungeon because the combat consisted of my class spamming one button the whole fight. I find the fact that mobs are only as hard as the number of them that you pull kind of annoying. I find it decent combat is to use offensive and defensive cooldowns in order to overcome challenges, using coordination to overcome possible odds. Here it's more if you pull a few, you live, if you pull too many, you die. Simple as that. The game is still young and it can get better from where it's at. It seems to have a solid footing into what it does. All the classes and story quests, it all seems to have a future down the line. The game is doing a cross-platform gaming between PC, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 3. It's an interesting interaction between players that creates a new environment. It's not a good or a bad environment, but it's definitely an interesting one. I'll play the game if you're fine with slow gameplay that's really WoW-like, making it a familiar playstyle. It has its own story like any other MMO, and it might be enough to captivate you with the whole ordeal. I tried it, I did the story, I got my chocobo, and I did all my class quests. I never finished the story, and now that I have an attachment to it at all, actually I skipped my story quests for the most part because they got kind of annoying, and they got spoiled by how slow the game progress is. I went through the whole game up to level 50 without the expansion, and the end result was being really interesting. Maybe you like the game. If you're the kind of person that gives a rating to a game, then I would give it about 71 out of 100. It's alright. That's enough for me to try the game for the first time, but not enough to keep me playing halfway through the game itself. At about level 25, that's really where it turned into kind of a grind, kind of force myself through all the quests, but, pay 20 bucks for the thing. The art is great, the combat is generic, the content is just like everything you've seen in other MMOs, the animations combat are too flashy for me, the music isn't the greatest. I would still tell other people to try it though. So this is really my personal experience with Final Fantasy XIV. And that's really it. I want to make it as script-based as possible to get my ideas across on paper and simply read off of it, just to make sure I don't go off of tangent. But I did want to express my personal experience with the game. I did play through the whole thing. I did kind of lose my interest at around level 25-ish, but I still kept playing with it because it had enough mechanics to really keep it going. But with the game being slow-paced, that kind of turned it a bit off for me, and the fact that it got slower as I got higher level. So it felt kind of crippling the higher level I tried to get. But maybe that just was my experience. Maybe this game is for the explorers, the young, the worthy, and I'm just not in that kind of crowd, which is completely understandable. Would I recommend this MMO to anybody else? Yeah, I definitely would. I definitely would recommend this MMO. You definitely should try, definitely should give it a try. Definitely try the trial, which is available on Steam if you're on PC. I don't know if there's a trial for console members or whatever, but definitely you should give the game a chance. Definitely give it a click, give it a look, and figure out if you like it for yourself or not. My name is Dalaran. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This has been my review of the game. Leave me a positive or negative responses down in the comments, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a bit of both. I was thinking I was going to be as fair as possible to this game, and yeah, go play it, go try it. Let me know what you think afterwards, and I'll see you guys in the next video.